Well, welcome everybody. On behalf of the Iowa Intermediary Network and Iowa Skilled Trades, we are excited you're joining us today for Build University as we learn more about the plumbing profession. There is a wide variety of plumbing opportunities within the profession, and we're excited to learn about some of those, as well as learn about the ever-changing codes and regulations associated with the career. So thanks again for joining us today. And I'd like to introduce our panelists that are on currently with us. We have Megan, who is an apprenticeship coordinator for ABC Iowa, and Dan, who is a plumbing instructor for Cunningham Incorporated. So thank you, panelists, for joining us on Build University. We're excited to learn about the profession and have a conversation with you about why others should join that profession. So Megan, I'm going to start with you as an apprenticeship coordinator. Tell us about your position and why it's an interesting and exciting career opportunity.
So I work for Associated Builders and Contractors, or ABC of Iowa. We run apprenticeship programs in plumbing and electrical, HVAC, and sheet metal. And before starting here, I didn't know a whole lot about the construction industry, but as I've continued to work here, I learned so much about how many opportunities are really available, and they work for really anyone. It's not just who you might think of when you think of a plumber. It's also those people who do the good book learning and who are great with math and all sorts of opportunities like that. But we are an apprenticeship 4-year generally program that I kind of oversee.
Thank you, Megan. And then we'll go on to Dan. Dan, as a plumbing instructor, tell us about your career and profession.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Wow, I'm excited to be here and talk to you guys about a little about what we do and how we do it and how we get from point A to point B. I know a lot of you, when you first start getting thinking about plumbing, nobody ever really throws up and says, "Hey, I want to be a plumber," right? So most people come into this not necessarily by accident, but they're looking to do a career, right? They're looking maybe to do something different with their lives. I'm telling you right now, I tried the desk thing for about a year and it did not work for me. I was the guy who needed to be out in the field doing stuff. And so I was very young. I got out of college and tried the desk thing for a year, and it just was not my cup of tea. I couldn't sit there all day. I needed to be out doing something. So I started out as an apprentice plumber and joined a company that had electrical, plumbing, and they also did general construction. And so I kind of got shuffled over to the plumbing department, which I had zero experience, knew nothing about. I was fortunate enough, I was a little mechanically inclined, so I was able to know which end of a wrench to use and that kind of thing. And so it just kind of led from starting there as a first year apprentice. You do the schooling, you learn a lot there, you do the field work, and you just stay with people and move around to different foremen and different journeymen who learn stuff. And as you continue through your career, your first year, you get a lot of the basics, right? So your second year, you get a little more in depth. And by your third year, you have a lot of understanding of what we do. And there's a lot to learn. So when you guys first think of plumbing, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Guys who do houses, right? You do plumbing houses because that's what we know and we use every day. But that's only a small portion of plumbing, really. There's some other factors in plumbing that's out there. And some of that is commercial work, right? These big office buildings that you see, industrial buildings that you see, manufacturing. There's plumbing in all those buildings, and we do all that kind of work. And segue off of that, and I think we have a steam fitter here. We'll probably get into some of that, but that's another type of piping that we do, right, that we can get into and do as well. But for your plumbing apprenticeship, if you guys, if you're getting into it now, now's the right time and the right place to be, because here, at least in Iowa, that if you're going to do it, we're growing. It's growing like mad, and there's not enough people who really want to do this kind of work. And it's fun to be out there. You go to a different job site every day, or a different job site every month, or every year, depending on the size of the job. And you're not just stuck in an office doing one thing. And you're making money while you learn, right? You're out there. You're going to be collecting a paycheck, and if it's not something you're cut out for, some people it's not cut out for. But man, if you can give it a try and you enjoy it, it is a blast to do and build a career over it. So I was in the field for 31 years, and I kind of moved into a project management position. So that's what I am now, as project manager. And the amount of stuff that's out there available for you guys to do when you start plumbing is going to be enormous. So there's med gas in hospitals, right? And that's going to lead you to a lot of different segues into different types of piping. And our industry as a whole is changing rapidly. The technology that's coming out for the different types of piping that we do and install is just enormous, you guys. So if you guys, it's something you want to think about, seriously, it's a great career to get into. And like I said, when I got into it, I wasn't sure I was going to like it. I didn't know how long I'd be in it. And I always thought I'd end up being like a teacher or something. And that didn't, I teach now at ABC, obviously, but I also work full time. And so, so I get to get that aspect in for me as well. I get to teach, but for me to be able to go out and build something on a job site and, I was in Colorado for 30 years building stuff there. We did some big jobs, high rises, 22 stories, 30-story buildings, 32-story buildings. I was fortunate to work on the VA hospital out there, and that was a $1.8 billion job, 5-year project. And so those jobs don't come along very often, but when they do, they're fun to be on if you're into that kind of work. I mean, if you're going to be on the same job for a while, that was one that you're going to be on for a while. And but when you step back and look at the enormity of that campus, it was like, wow, look what we did. And then you drive by it every day, and something that you guys will get into doing is you'll be driving around town. It's like, yeah, I worked in that building, or yeah, we built that building. And that's always kind of fun after years of doing it. It's like, yeah, oh, there's that building we were in. I could tell you about that one. So that pretty much sums it up for me. If you guys, when we get to the end here, we got some questions, please don't be afraid to ask, because they can help you out and how you want to get started in your career. It's a great thing to do, you guys. For me, it's been terrific. I can't ask for a better career. What I've done, it fit me really well, and hope you guys at least take it into consideration, and that it could be a good fit for you. Like I said, not everybody's cut out to sit behind a desk and sit on a computer all day long. It's the guys that like to get out and get dirty and work on stuff, and they're out there. So just keep that in mind. So thank you, guys. I'll let somebody else carry on.
Thank you so much, Dan, for that excitement and energy you're bringing to the plumbing profession. Next, we're joined with Jeremy. Jeremy, tell us a little bit about yourself and your pathway to the plumbing profession, please.
So I started in the plumbing profession about probably 2002, and I worked for a contractor out of Altoona, Iowa, R&D Plumbing, that mostly did houses and small light commercial. Just kind of happenstance, I was out to eat with a training director from Local 33, and we got to talking and asked what I did, and so I ended up going to work for one of the signatory contractors for Local 33. I went in thinking all I was going to be doing was plumbing. As Dan said earlier, there's so much more about the plumbing trade that I had no clue about, even coming out of more of a residential contractor. The first job I went to was a welding job in an industrial plant. Kind of took to welding, and I ended up staying there pretty much my entire apprenticeship. For 5 years, I worked in an industrial plant doing plumbing, pipe fitting, welding, that type of thing. I then became the welding instructor for Local 33 in 2011. Was here for about 5 years, 6 years as the welding instructor. I took the job as the assistant training director, did that for a year, and then went and tried to be a project manager for one of our contractors, and then they called me back and asked if I'd be the training director for Local 33. So here I sit. One thing I realized now that I didn't know when I was younger, especially high school ages, I had no idea how fulfilling the trades would be. I grew up in a household that had tradespeople in it, but my dad always looked at me and said, you need to find something better. Look at me. I don't enjoy what I do. I don't, and so in my mind, I always thought, I'm not going to be that. I'm not going to do that. Fast forward multiple years, and really, if you asked any of my high school teachers and principals and all that stuff, and I'll send emails over to them for career fairs and stuff, and the ones I get back are normally, you're doing what now? Because me as a person that just worked with my hands, that's all I did. They never thought I would be in the position I am. And so I guess my point is you may go in and want to be a plumber, work with your hands. You never know what you could come out on the other side. Business owner, you could be a detailer. I guess it's endless. Everything's endless. So it's been good for me, for my family. So it's a good career.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. To learn a little bit more about our attendees that are joining us today, we're going to launch a quick poll here to find out, why are you interested in the plumbing career and what pathway are you interested in achieving that? So I'm going to go ahead and launch that. If you have computer access right now, or if you're in a classroom, if you can just have one person answer it, we'll just take a few seconds here to kind of gather more information about who's joining us today. So go ahead and fill in that survey so we can see your interest. Give you a couple more seconds in case you're in the classroom and you're trying to gather a consensus and picking one of those items, and we will go on from there. Great. It looks like a lot are joining because of the high in-demand occupation that plumbing is, as well as the variety that you can find within the plumbing industry. So, and then we're about split half 50-50 on the a pathway that they're looking to become a plumber. So that leads nicely into our next question. I'll turn it over to Terry.
All right, this question is for Megan, and I know a lot of students are trying to decide between apprenticeship and maybe the college route. And if you could just tell us a little bit about the different pathways that students can get into this profession.
So we do an apprenticeship program here. So that's kind of what I work with and what I know about. Basically, you attend class generally it's one night a week, and then you are also working full time. So you're earning your full-time paycheck and then getting your education one night a week. So what that means is you're getting your on-the-job training, and then as well as getting your classroom training. And then we also have labs that kind of you're learning on the job, but you don't necessarily have that time to have an instructor come and teach you exactly what you're doing, which is what our labs provide for you. And so we do 4 levels. So each level generally takes about a year, which fits in with the amount of hours you need to be working in order to graduate our program. And then once you go through all 4 levels of the trade, then you can actually go and take your journeyman exam. So we fit the requirements of the Department of Labor to then be able to take your journeyman exam. And then that's what you need to become the licensed plumber. So that's how our program works. I know that there are community college programs. I don't know as much about those, but I know about and can answer any questions about an apprenticeship.
And that's a great kind of lead in. There was a question in the Q&A, and maybe Dan or even Megan, Jeremy, all 3 of you can maybe chime in. But what are some of the most important soft skills needed for this career path? I think that's a great question to ask. And maybe Jeremy, maybe I'll hit on you first.
So, and we always talk about this among all of us in the apprenticeship field, is the required soft skills that may be lacking a little bit coming out of high school that need to be looked at. The biggest one I can think of off the top of my head is, and I don't know if you necessarily call it a soft skill, but it's showing up for work. I mean, that's a big issue that we run into, is making sure somebody shows up for work, stays off a cell phone. We don't need people on cell phones all the day, which is probably one of the biggest challenges that we face right now. As far as construction side skills, reading a tape measure. I mean, that is one thing that if you don't know how to do it coming in, especially working with maybe an older foreman or older journeyman or whoever, they don't have a whole lot of time. You know, they want you to understand that prior to coming onto the field, reading a tape measure. You know, safety is such a huge thing right now, where in my mind, I think that most high schools now offer like an OSHA class. It would be great for all of the either new apprentices or pre-apprentices that we hire that would have some OSHA safety training, just to understand. The last thing we want is for somebody not to go home at night. So really, the biggest thing to me is a tape measure and work ethic. So.
I'll kind of second what he's saying. After talking to a lot of our members, some of just the basic being punctual, showing up on time, some of just those basic professional skills are some of the things that they really look for out of the gate. And sometimes that seem to be kind of lacking, like Jeremy said.
So I'm going to jump in here too a little bit. You know, when you're young and you get out of high school, there's a lot of freedom there, right? And so some of this freedom is with these younger guys that we have. It doesn't take them long to find that they need to have some self-discipline. And for you guys coming in, being in high school and coming out of high school, the guys who are very successful, that do well in this and do their 4 years, are really kind of self-disciplined, know what they want, and are hungry for a career, and have a good attitude, right? Attitude is going to be 90% of this position. I'm not going to lie to you guys that their first year is always rough, right? The first year apprentice, they get all the not so good work, but it's not necessarily dirty work. It's just hard work, right? And, you know, so if you have a great attitude, you get through your first year, the second year gets better, and you're getting raises every year. So it's not like you're not getting paid for it. But if you can come out with those, your attitude, having a good attitude, and have some self-discipline. For me, I went to college for 4 years, and the guys, when I got out of college and got into plumbing right away, the guys who were already been doing it for 4 years already had their licenses. So I had to play catch up. And, you know, but these guys, they were self-disciplined and got themselves to work and did their jobs and were well ahead of me as far as where they were at in their career and stuff. So just keep that in mind when you guys get out of school and you're doing that kind of stuff. So I'd have to agree with Jeremy and Megan that, you know, be punctual, and any opportunity you get to learn something, just do it. So that's all I've got for you. Thank you.
We have another question from a student, is what is the licensing process? So I know, Megan, you talked a little bit about the process to become a journeyman, then you get your journeyman's license. Is there any other way a student other than an apprenticeship can go in and get a license? And I'll just throw it out to anyone who wants to chime in.
So the way our licensing structure works in Iowa for the plumbing and mechanical systems is you have to be a registered apprentice in a registered apprenticeship program in order to sit for your journeyman's license to take the test. With that being said, with the kids that we're talking to today, it won't matter. They do have a thing where if you have 5 years of experience prior to 2011, you can also get an affidavit signed. But as far as the licensing goes, so our apprentices, when they come into our program, in order to sign into our program, they have to get an apprentice license. We don't allow anybody in our apprenticeship without having an apprentice license. So then they go through their 5 years of apprenticeship, and at the end of their 4th year is when they take their test to become a journey person. So after they take their test to become a journey person, they have to have the required hours for our program. You have to have 10,000 hours to turn out of our apprenticeship program. Once they have the school side and the work side completed, then they can then go in and apply for their journey person license. And it's in our program, we require both mechanical and plumbing licenses in order to turn out of the program. So unless they have those two, they don't become a journey person until they have those 2 licenses. So.
For us on our side, it's 4 years. You have to have 4 years of work-related experience. And again, you have to be a registered apprentice, and that's through the state, and you'll get your registration. And we also do on-job training hours that we keep track of for our apprentices too. Part of the Bureau Apprenticeship Training, that they keep track of that we maintain those hours, that they have enough time slotted to take their test, their journeyman test. After you get your journeyman's license, you can work another 2 years for your master's in Iowa. The one thing about this, having this education, and in the state of Iowa right now, we're under the Uniform Plumbing Code. For the most part, there's a few places that have IPC, but for the most part, it's the Uniform Plumbing Code. You can take that knowledge that you have and go to any state usually. And you'll usually have to take a test, but you can get a license in another state. So for me, I had a master's in Colorado. I was able to take the master's license in Iowa because of the years of experience I've had with the master's in Colorado. I was able to take the master's here in Iowa and pass that. So that's part of the road to getting licensed and being a professional in this career. So let us know if there's any other questions we can answer along the way for you.
Well, I'm going to keep you on the pathway of code, Dan, and just explain it maybe a little bit more in depth why students need to, why that's an important piece of the curriculum, what it's used for, why it's useful, its relevance to like regulations and ordinances and all that great fun stuff.
So we have codes in place. Really, there's a couple of reasons why. One is the first one, the foremost, is to protect the health of our nation, the health and welfare of our people, to keep them from being sick. The second one is when we install our products to a standard or a code, and it's usually everything starts out as a standard and it doesn't become a code until it's adopted by an authority having jurisdiction, whether that's the state, the city, independent jurisdictions, depending on where you live at, have their own codes. I know Ames has a kind of a stricter code than the rest of the state. Different cities will have amendments. Even the Iowa has an amended code to the Uniform Plumbing Code, and you can pull those out, read them. They're a little different. There's certain sections that are going to be a little different than the Uniform Plumbing Code. Colorado, for instance, is on the IPC, which is the International Plumbing Code. Minnesota is on the IPC, International Plumbing Code. There are some differences. They're not hugely far apart, but there are some differences that you'd have to learn. And so as you learn the code through your 4 years, you'll be able to install products. And there's a lot more to knowing and understanding the code than most people realize. It's not just going putting pipe in and hanging pipe, but it's understanding why you're putting it in and for what reasons, why you need a trap to keep sewer gases from entering a building, those kind of things. So hopefully that helps you guys understand a little bit what we do as far as getting a license is basically testing on that code and knowing that code and that we are competent in installing the product. I don't know if Jeremy wants to expand on that any.
Yeah, I mean, Dan's right. The whole premise behind the plumber profession was protecting the health of the nation. If you look at any kind of history, plumbers have saved more lives than doctors when it comes to running water and drainage and that type of thing. And one thing that if something that's going to come out of this crazy world we're living in now is going to be the amount of changes you're going to see in hospitals, schools, and it goes into the plumbing, more of the HVAC side, but there's a big push for the clean water. And if you don't know the code, like Dan said, you don't know the code and you put it in, you're essentially could be putting somebody's health at risk. And so, and the other side of it too is protecting the end user. So these codes are also put into place to protect the end user. For the most part, in communities, people don't really understand plumbing. They know how to flush a toilet, but they don't understand how it's working from flushing it. And our job is to protect an end user or a homeowner from having faulty plumbing systems put in. And that's what the codes are put there for. So,
Jeremy, I'm going to keep you on the spot. Can you tell us the difference between a plumber and a steam fitter, so we better understand those terminologies?
So a plumber is going to run potable water. It's going to run drainage for the systems in a house or in a commercial building, right? So it's all portraying water, moving water. Once again, you can get into med gas. That's kind of in our neck of the woods. That's kind of a contention. Steam fitters say they should put med gas in. Plumbers say they should put med gas in. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It just needs to get put in. A steam fitter, which that's what I am, is a steam fitter more than a plumber. A steam fitter is more process piping. So if you can picture where all your food comes from, your food at some point, a steam fitters had to run pipe for your food to get where it's going. Same with the lights. Every single person that you ever talk to, if you ask a question, who makes the lights go on? Everybody says an electrician. Without a steam fitter, there's no lights. because we build the powerhouses in order to turn the lights on. So if you can think of a steam fitter as more of a process type profession, I like to put it like this: as at the end of the day, which goes into plumbing too, you can't live without lights, and we sure can't live without air conditioning anymore. People just, they can't do it anymore. So a steam fitter is going to provide lights, power, your food, where plumbing is going to provide your running water, clean water, gas in hospitals, and that type of thing.
And I'll put this question up for Dan, Jeremy, and or Megan. Can you tell us about the lifestyle? What does a typical day look like? And I know there's no typical day, but can you just explain a little bit about the working conditions? You know, what does an average day look for you, like for a plumber or a steam fitter?
So it kind of depends on if you are a plumber or a steam fitter. So right now, you guys, you can all imagine you're in a pair of Carhartts. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's cold outside. That's one thing that when you're getting into this trade, it's hot in the summer and it's cold in the winter. It's part of it. As far as a steam fitter goes, so I worked in almost every industrial plant in Des Moines. That's what my job was going around and doing outages to make sure the plants stay up and running. So one day I might be working at a tire plant. The next day I may be working at a meat processing plant, bean plants. We work all over the place. As a steam fitter, you're going to do a lot of welding. Most of the time it's going to be clear up in the air, and it's either going to be really hot or really cold. The thing that drew me more towards the steam fitting side was, once again, in my head, I always, and I try to teach my kids this, is try to think of something you can't live without. Try to think of a career people cannot live without. And so as a steam fitter, there has to be tires on tractors. There has to be tires on cars. There has to be food processing going on. As far as when you go out to these job sites, it's all dependent on where you're working. If you're working at a tire plant, just know you're walking in, it's 100 degrees in. If you're working at a powerhouse, you're going to be on top of a Hersek boiler, clear 200 feet up in the air in the wind and the cold that's out there today. And then as a plumber, it just kind of depends on the phase. Like right now, I want to be a trim plumber. I'd want to be doing all the trim work because that's inside. It's controlled temperature, that type of thing. But in the spring and the fall, you can't beat a good groundwork because you can go out there and work outside when the weather's nice. It's a little dirty, but that's why everybody came to do these trades, get their hands dirty and get out there. So it all kind of depends. A lot of weather has a ton to do with it. I mean, weather is a big factor in our trade. So I'm sure Dan could put a little bit more on the.
I think you're absolutely right. And even when it is nice, you end up in a cooler running the condensate. So you could have your winter coat on in the middle of summer, running condensate lines in a cooler. So average day in the life, depending on what you do, right? Where your niche is at. Some guys like doing service work, right? They're in a van driving around people's houses, changing faucets, changing sump pumps, stuff like that. If you're a commercial guy, you may be in a building, right in the skip going up to the 22nd floor, getting off, and it could be chilly, or they could have the building enclosed and you could have some temporary heat in there. So it kind of depends where you're at and what you're doing. Yes, there's going to be cold days. Yes, there's going to be hot days. A lot of people now they try to get buildings where they're 50 degrees so you can at least work in them. But you're up early, if you're up 4:35, 5:30. We typically start at 7 o'clock on our jobs. We work 8 hours, take a half-hour lunch, and you're off at 3:30 and you're on your way home. So you still have time to do stuff when you get home. Mostly a 40-hour week. There's times where you're working weekends. Once in a while, you'll have some nights where you got to do shutdowns. You used to do a lot of med gas work. And so you'd go in hospitals, you'd have to start at midnight when you shut stuff down and start stuff back up when there was a few people there. So it's a variety. I mean, there's really nothing that's going to be, if you like something's going to be changing all the time, you would like plumbing because you're always doing something different and new people, new faces, new projects, new solutions to come over problems with. So just keep that in mind. I agree with Jeremy that you're going to be in all kinds of different situations. So
we're coming up on the end of our session for today, and I just want to leave with some words of encouragement to our participants on why they should really consider the plumbing profession. So I'm going to ask Megan to kind of give her sales pitch on why they should consider definitely an apprenticeship plumbing profession pathway.
So speaking of the apprenticeship side, I think one of the big things that for me, for someone who went to a 4-year school and is not necessarily doing something in my major of what I picked, is there's very little to no debt. You know, the tuition to come here is maybe a couple months of my college loan payment that I pay. So I think that's a huge thing. You're not only getting the variety that Dan and Jeremy have mentioned, you can kind of choose your career path. There's a whole lot of different career paths, all things that I didn't know before I started working for ABC, all the opportunities. And then while you're getting your education in the apprenticeship program, you are working full time. You're still getting a paycheck while you are learning more about your trade. So I know as someone who came in not knowing a whole lot about the construction industry before I started at ABC, I was amazed just at all the opportunities and, you know, at the amount of education that you do get, but that you're not going into debt for it and that you are still learning your trade and working at the same time. I think that's huge.
And Dan, as an instructor, what are words of encouragement to, and you know, to recruit men and women into the plumbing profession?
So you guys, when you're thinking about your career choices, right, you want to do, and like I said, most people grow up don't think they want to be a plumber, but the opportunities out there for you are insurmountable. There's so many opportunities for you guys to join. And I'm telling you that our trade is probably dominated by men, but I've had many women work for me and work with me and be supervisors. I've got a good friend in Denver. Her name's Michelle Brown. She's a general superintendent at RK Mechanical. Terrific gal. She was in my class in 2000 and 2001 when I was teaching second year plumbing in Colorado. She was in my class and she worked her way and did a great job. And now she's in charge of a whole division of people who do plumbing, and she's really good at her job. So don't be scared off by what we do and the hard work and stuff, because you will, it's there for you. You just got to go out and any opportunity you can to do it, you'll find that this will be rewarding. And like Jeremy said earlier, there's nothing better than like stepping back and looking at, hey, look what I did. I put this backflow preventer in there. I put this PRV station in. And same thing probably goes with him when you step back and look at the 1/3, 2/3 Steve station, like, hey, this looks good, turned out great. You step back, there's a lot of self gratification and seeing these projects that you put in and get done. And the end user goes to be able to flush a toilet and the thing works. But you know how it got there and how it works. Nobody else sees it, but you know everything that goes behind the wall that you can see. And so, all I can say to you guys is, give it a shot, give it a chance. If you're into mechanical things and you like really cool stuff, because there's 1,000 parts that you can take apart and work on to figure stuff out. And it's, for me, it's been a really rewarding career. It's been, it's fed my family and it's allowed us a good lifestyle. So please, you guys, take a consideration in what you're doing and let's try to make it happen for yourselves. So only you guys can decide that and step up and make a choice, right? And it's a great career choice for you. So I will leave it at that.
And Jeremy, your closing thoughts. Why should students especially consider a career pathway in plumbing or steam fitters?
So I touched on what Megan said. The biggest thing that's driving in high schools right now is saying they got to go take some sort of college education. And I've never gone to, well, I guess I can't say that now, but prior to me entering the apprenticeship, I never went through college and I really didn't have any clue about the student loan side of things and all that. And so a friend of mine that went through college, who's now actually an apprentice, we sat down and talked at one point. And one thing you can always think of, just like Megan said, is when you're in college, normally you're working for, I don't know, Pizza Hut or something. You're not working a career. You're working a job that you're just making enough money to live up at college. Where one of our apprentices goes through our 5-year apprenticeship school, and as of our last wages, they'd make about $400,000 in the 5 years. So most of our apprentices are buying their first house. They're buying new vehicles. They're that type of thing. And really at the end of the day for our program, if you're going to go to a community college, get a 2-year degree, we offer the same 2-year degree and it's all paid for by our membership. And so it's one thing to always look at, you're going to get, and there's nothing wrong with going to community college or anything like that. So I don't want people to think that I'm anti every kind of college, because I'm absolutely not. But at the end of the day, if you can go into one of our apprenticeship programs and you can learn the same trade and make money while you're doing it, it just makes sense at the end of the day to do it. So that's kind of my whole thing is, give it a shot, see if it's something you want to do, if you'd like to do it. Tour the training facilities. I mean, I know that it's a little crazy right now because of everything going on in the world, but I'm sure Megan's the same way. We're open. If somebody wants to come down and tour our facility, anybody, they just give us a call. We can walk them through to get an idea of what we do on a daily basis. Because again, it's one of the plumbing is one of those trades where people look at you and you're like, "Where's your plunger?" Right? That's all they think about. Well, that's not everything we do. So I just give it a shot. It's rewarding. It's very good paying at the end of the day. That's what everybody is looking at, is what you're going to get paid. So, and benefits are good. So give it a shot.
Well, thank you, Megan, Dan, and Jeremy, so much for joining us today on Build University. If you want to check out more additional Build University events, check out iowain.org. The website will have the live events. If you've missed a previous event, you can also have the digital download for that. So again, on behalf of the Iowa Intermediary Network and Iowa Skilled Trades, thank you so much for joining us today as we took a deeper dive into the plumbing profession. So thank you.